Today, we're going to compare the Canon Powershot SX740 versus the Panasonic Lumix ZS70. Let's go! What's going on, everybody? Phil with Photo Gear Fun here today. We're going to compare a couple of 4K powerhouses, and this is being filmed in 4K on the Canon Powershot SX740 and the Panasonic Lumix ZS70, both around $400, both 4K, both super zooms. These are, right now you're looking at video that's completely zoomed out, so it's as wide as it can be, and there's a little bit more of a crop on the Canon than there is on the Panasonic, and you'll see that as we go through this. The cameras are in the same basic spot, and they're aligned in the same way, so you have a little bit more of a field of view in 4K with the Panasonic versus the Canon. So I'm going to switch back and forth both the audio and the video in this review, and again, everything is being filmed with both of these cameras, and then we'll just cut back and forth between the two. So I took these out to the zoo. I wanted to see how they perform in a studio performance, how they perform out in the field for vlogging, and also how they performed as photography cameras. So we're going to do all of that today. You're seeing this in the studio setting with my studio lighting set up. I'm going to show you some of the pictures that we took at the zoo. Also going to show you some vlog style videos that we took. So I'm going to take you over to the digital darkroom. We'll look at some of those pictures. I took quite a few pictures, and we'll see the difference between these two cameras for photography. I'll throw in some of the vlogs as well, and then again you can look at this studio as I'm flipping back and forth between the cameras, both for the video and for the audio. Then we'll come back and we'll talk about the pros and cons of each, or compare and contrast each of them. We'll talk a little bit about the specs as well, and then we'll see which camera might be right for you. So here we are in the digital darkroom. I wanted to show you the pictures that we took, and if you look over here you can kind of see the camera and the information. Pay attention to the field of view, also the ISO setting, and these other settings here for shutter speed and aperture. And we'll kind of try to point out the differences between the two shots, and I try to take the shots as the same as I could make them. I didn't take them exactly at the same time, but here are similar shots, and you can see that on the left is the Canon, and then on the right is the Panasonic. So again, these were in auto mode. So if you look at the Canon on the left, the color looks a little better. It looks a little more saturated. The grain on the right is definitely, there's more grain on the right for sure, but that's because the Canon chose a lower ISO, which is a sensitivity light, which will make it less grainy with the shutter speed and aperture. So pay attention to the aperture, and you can see the settings here. So the Canon chose ISO 800 with an aperture of 5.6. The Panasonic chose an ISO of 1600 with a 5.6 and the same aperture. And you can see the difference between the field of view. So 31 millimeters on the Panasonic, 39 millimeters on the Canon. You can see the Canon has a 40x zoom, the Panasonic has a 30x zoom. So of these two pictures, to my eye, the Canon looks better, but that's because the automatic mode of the Panasonic for some reason chose the ISO of 1600. Now you can change that. I just wanted to do this review with the automatic settings, so you can definitely change that and force the camera to use whatever it is that you want to use for settings. So here are a couple other shots. Again, the Canon on the left, Panasonic on the right, and you can see again the ISO is 800, an aperture of f5.6. If we zoom in, you can see the focus looks pretty good, and this is through glass, by the way, so the focus isn't going to be perfect. These particular shots were taken through the glass, and again, the Panasonic shows 1600 and a higher aperture, which means that theoretically you could see more. There's more in focus technically than here at f5.6, and basically the aperture will open or close to let more light in. The more open it is, the less you'll have in focus, basically. So the f5.6 is open more than 6.4, and that's the difference in the light, the amount of what you have in focus, and also the graininess of the picture. So at 800 ISO, you can see that this looks pretty clean. The Canon looks pretty clean on the left, and again, the saturation, there's more saturation in the Canon, and you can see the Panasonic because it shows that higher ISO value of 1600, has more grain in the picture. And you'll see that's a fairly common theme throughout this. So here's a picture of an alligator here. And you can see these pictures look very similar. So again, the ISO for this one is 500, and the aperture is f5 for the Canon, 15 millimeters. And this is at 13 millimeters. It shows, again, the Panasonic chooses a higher ISO for some reason, and the aperture setting is just a little bit different. But you can see the shutter speed here as well. So this is a faster shutter speed or higher shutter speed, which means the shutter was open for less time, and that's why the ISO is 1600. The ISO here is 500, and the shutter is 1/50th, which means the shutter was open for longer, it got more light, so the sensitivity to light, or the ISO, didn't have to be set as high. But again, I think the pictures look pretty good. These pictures are really close to one another as far as saturation goes and as far as clarity goes. They're both really capable cameras as far as photographs go. So here's a picture of a bear, and this is not behind glass. I did find that the Canon, for some reason, didn't focus on objects as well as the Panasonic did. And you can see here with this bear, just a little bit out of focus if you look. So again, it shows a lower ISO, and that's a common theme, so I'll kind of stop harping on that. But the reason you'll see more grain on the Panasonic on the right is that it chooses a higher ISO for some reason. And again, if you want to go into manual mode, you can certainly change that and force the camera to do what it is that you want to do. So this is ISO 1000. But you can see that the focus on the Panasonic is better. And I did find that it definitely focuses better for photography. But again, they're good pictures. I think again, both of these are very capable cameras as far as photography goes. So here's another example. This one won't be as dramatic. You can see the ISO here is 100. It was really bright. And you can see the exposure looks pretty good. There's not a lot of kind of blown out or really, really bright spots of the picture. So you can see that it shows a shutter speed of 100 and an aperture of 5.6. And the Panasonic chose an ISO of 320 here instead of the ISO of 100. So I'm not sure exactly what the difference is here, because the aperture setting is very similar. The shutter speed was very similar. So these settings, these two pictures are set to be pretty close to one another, but you can see that the Canon handles the light a little bit better. So it seems like the dynamic range, or the difference between light and dark on the Canon, seems to be better than it is on the Panasonic. We'll show you some more pictures that we took here. And this is of a red wolf, and this one, it's not really, really low light, but there wasn't a ton of light getting in. You can see again the pictures. All these pictures look pretty good. They're not great pictures. They're not necessarily pro type pictures, but I was doing these fairly quickly, and the rig that I had wasn't really the best for photography, especially if it's in lower light. Normally you would just hold one camera. I was holding two at the same time on a rig that was a little bit rickety. So these aren't necessarily the best examples of either of these cameras, but you can see again that the settings are different. Pictures look very similar in this particular case, though. There's another couple of pictures through glass. And the Canon didn't seem to focus as well through glass as the Panasonic did, meaning that when I tried to get focus, the Canon tended to focus on the glass rather than the subjects behind the glass. So it was a little bit more of a challenge taking the pictures with the Canon. But again, these are good photographs that you would share with your family. They're not obviously going to be in any sort of magazine. And I did find that both of them missed focus, I won't say fairly often, but more often than I would like. And you can see here that clearly the Panasonic focused on this tree branch here. I'm not exactly sure where the Canon focused. I can't really find anything that's in crisp focus except for this branch right over here. But it should have been focusing on the parrot in both cases, and the Panasonic missed, and didn't miss by that much. Again, these pictures, very similar. The color definitely is more saturated and might be more pleasing to many on the Canon than on the Panasonic. I'll show you a few more here. I wanted to show you this one, and because you weren't there to see, I can tell you that the color reproduction on the Panasonic in this particular shot and many of the shots seemed truer to the actual color, or the color my eyes saw. So this seems a little bit more natural than this. This is definitely not the color it was. It was more of this deep red. Again, another pictures through glass, and again, they both look really good considering the light is fairly low here. But again, these are pictures that I think I would be happy to show my friends and family. And then here's one in good light, picture of a zebra. You can see they both look really good. So those are the pictures. We'll show you some video here, some vlog style video, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about the Canon versus the Panasonic. This is a vlog test, 4K 30p. You can see in both of these cameras there's a bit of a crop, and you'll see I'm going to do 1080p, so you can see the difference between the field of view in 1080p versus 4K. Do just a quick focus test here and see. Both of them have face tracking on. You can see a difference in the color. Both are set to basically full auto. Image stabilization is on in both. You can get an idea on how that works. I'll switch the audio between the Panasonic and the Canon. And you can definitely see a difference in the color. Which color you like most is up to you. You can change the colors as well. There are different profiles where you can change the colors and add more contrast and color and those types of things. But this is 4K 30p, and we'll do 1080p next. This is 1080p. We looked at the 4K 30. Just wanted to show you how much more you can get into the frame at 1080p. So with both of these cameras, there's a crop in 4K, and if you want to get the maximum amount of things in your frame, 1080p is probably best. But if you want that 4K goodness, there is going to be a bit of a crop. So again, this is 1080p. Auto settings, basically the same thing. The audio, I'll alternate between the Canon and the Panasonic. But you can get an idea on how much more you can get to the frame with 1080p, and you can see the video differences. I'm walking around just a little bit. You can see image stabilization, see how well it's working on both cameras. Again, sorry for not looking into the lens, but just want to make sure I've got everything in frame here. Alright, so that's 1080p audio video sample. Now back to the video. Well, here are the features. I just want to kind of cover the major differences. You can see the Panasonic has a 30x zoom versus the Canon with its 40x zoom. There's no RAW support in photo for the Canon, which means that you can't shoot in RAW, which allows you to be able to capture everything in the scene and gives you a little more leeway or freedom when you're editing. There's no EVF, which really helps when it's in bright sunlight and you might not be able to see the back of the screen, although both screens are pretty bright. There's no manual video mode for Canon. Canon's really made to just put it into auto and shoot, where the Panasonic does have a manual video mode. So you can see the specs there. Those are the major differences. They're both really good cameras, basically similar specs or almost the same specs at the same price. So that was the video, the vlog video. So the pictures that we took. Who are these cameras for? Which camera might be right for you? First of all, I would say that the Canon is great if you just want to put your camera in full auto, and all of this video and all the photos were shot on full auto, meaning I just put it on automatic, just press the shutter button and everything. The camera took care of everything, so you can see the differences between the two. If you're looking for something that is just very, very simple to use, very easy to use, with not a lot of options, the Canon's a great camera. You can see the video. The video looks a little more saturated to me, which can be a good or a bad thing. That's up to you. You have to decide which you like more. As far as photographs go, the photographs were definitely more saturated than they were on the Panasonic. So again, that's a matter of personal choice. But the Canon really is very simple. Point it, shoot, go, do what you need to do, and move on with your day. The Panasonic, on the other hand, has just about every feature known to man. Panasonic really likes to cram features into their cameras. It does shoot RAW, which means that you can shoot and capture basically everything in the scene when you're taking a photograph, and then process it in something like Lightroom later on, where the Canon does not shoot RAW. And you saw that in the specs, and we kind of ran down the major specs, and you can see that the Canon just doesn't have RAW support, so the shots that come out of that are just JPEG, which again makes it easier. If your workflow is just to shoot and go, you can do that with the Panasonic as well. You can set it to RAW and JPEG. But if you're just looking for something that's simple, easy to use, you're not going to do any editing, again, the Canon might be your choice. But the Panasonic gives you more options, so you can certainly you can shoot JPEGs and you can shoot RAW, and then you can take them both back in and look at which one you like more. I've used the Lumix. I've got some videos of the Lumix. I also got some videos of the of the Canon. I'll put those up in the info card up in the corner. Both of these cameras are great cameras. They both shoot 4K. They both do 1080p 60. They're both around $400. The battery life I found to be really good on both of them. On a normal day, you can shoot a fair amount of video and a fair amount of photographs with these one battery, and the batteries are small and light. The Panasonic battery does last a little longer than the Canon, but the battery is physically bigger as well. And just make sure you have a spare battery or two. This is Phil, Photo Gear Fun. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. If you do subscribe, please click on that bell icon, and that will allow you to be notified when we go live or when we have a new video. I hope you enjoyed this comparison. Look for my full review of the Canon coming soon. I'm going to take that on a trip to Disney, so I'll probably put that through its paces at Disney, and that will be my full review of the Canon SX740. Thanks again for watching, and we will see you again in the next video.